Chapter 5. A dark shape hovered over me, the shadow. He reached his inky hands forward and covered my face. I couldn't breathe. I tried to push him away, but my arms were tied down. I gasped one last time, desperate for air, and inhaled cat hair. I coughed and opened my eyes. Seda sat on my face, flicking his tail. I untangled my arms from the blankets and pushed him off the bed. Ignoring his protesting yowls, I stared at the stars through my window. My birthday. Would Davinia come? At least Sir Gilbert had prepared a surprise for me. I smiled and shut my eyes. A single violin woke me. I waited for the rest of the quartet to join him, but they didn't. When I opened my eyes, only Mother, Lady Alma, and Sir Inkling greeted me. No courtiers, a single musician. Lady Alma had held my opera costume from the 3rd revision, when I had been a shepherdess in disguise, a pink and beige confection covered with bows. In keeping with typical peasant immodesty, the skirt was short enough to show my ankles. Mother held long boots. I named thee Salaria, Salarian princess, born to be queen of them all, she said. I waited for Sir Inkling to speak, but he just dipped his quill into his inkwell hat and took notes. Mother put down the boots and pulled back my blanket herself. "Where's everyone else?" I whispered. "I thought an intimate celebration of your birthday would be best. Of course your father couldn't make it." I walked to the center of the room. Lady Alma snapped me into the boots and shepherdess costume. "No painters?" I said. "No birthday morning poem? You're not disappointed, are you? We have something very special planned, full of symbolism." Sir Gilbert's surprise. "This dress isn't a breakfast gown." Lady Alma rolled her eyes. She wore a green wig, covered in bows shaped like miniature trees. "We're not having breakfast in the usual place today," Mother said. I followed her down the hallway. We walked past the empty breakfast room and kept going until we reached our largest courtyard. The scene of my fairy blessing. Courtiers and musicians surrounded us. They sang as I walked through the crowd. Sir Gilbert stood by a roofless carriage, dressed as a shepherd. He took my hand and helped me up, then jumped and sat beside me. Everyone else climbed into identical carriages. I watched Father help Mother into one. "What in the world is going on?" I whispered to Sir Gilbert. "Symbolism." The trumpets played a fanfare. 10 soldiers on horseback rode through the courtyard and down the road to the sea. Our driver snapped his reins. I grabbed Sir Gilbert's arm for balance as the horse lurched forward. My parents and a line of carriages full of courtiers followed us. The music should have faded as we left the courtyard. Instead, it grew louder. Singers on horseback rode on either side of us, performing music from Mother's operas. We followed the guards down the road. When we reached the gate, 2 soldiers waved their hands and opened it with an enchantment. We descended a steep ramp and entered the 2nd tier of the city. Sir Gilbert glanced around with interest. "Lesser nobles and artists live here," I said. "There is a rather nice park, though. You can see it from my garden. Is that where we're going?" He shook his head. The guards at the front opened another gate. The woods shimmered as their charm pulled it open. This ramp was bumpier. I gazed at the 3rd tier of the city. The houses were smaller. Upper-level servants and wealthy merchants, mostly. I turned to Sir Gilbert. "Is this enough guards? I usually have more." "You're not usually with me." The sea grew nearer and nearer. After a few more gates, we reached the port. It was empty. Perhaps everyone was taking a holiday for my birthday. We passed the harbor and drove into the forest. I heard the drone rushing toward the sea, but the trees blocked my view. "Would you like some breakfast?" Sir Gilbert reached below the seat and pulled out a basket. The seat across from us folded up into a table. He placed pastries, fruit, and cheese onto a plate. This is symbolic? Very. We both laughed. I caught a glimpse of a ship's mast through a gap in the leaves. They must be sailing upriver. A bandit hides in these woods, I said. Worse than any pirate, so they say. What makes him so bad? No one has ever seen him. He steals our treasures like a ghost. Could you fight someone like that? An invisible bandit? Of course. Let him try to attack us. We gazed into the woods, searching for bandits. The trees grew in a scattered manner, not at all like the orderly groves in our palace garden. Leaves fluttered in the wind, and I almost believed the shadow was hiding in the dark spaces, waiting to attack us. Tell me about your most exciting battle. Only if you tell me about yours. I've never been in a battle. Surely you've taken a swing at a poet at some point over the years. I laughed. I was attacked once, I said, remembering. Someone dared to attack you. Sir Gilbert turned to face me. His chin rested on his hands like a child, and his eyes wide. I ignored him. It was 2 days after I turned 6. I was playing with Seda, with a group of my companions. Your blonde companions? Yes, they were all as blonde as you. Mother insists on that. Symbolism, I'm sure. He ran a hand through his curled golden hair. It looked striking against his sun-tanned skin, the opposite of my pale skin and dark hair. I was playing with Seda when one of my handmaidens ran towards me. She screamed that she hated me and tried to hit me. I let go of Seda and hit her back. Guards picked her up and dragged her away. Seda ran after them, hissing and scratching, trying to protect me. A courtier brought him back to me a few minutes later. What was her name? I shrugged. I don't even remember my handmaidens' names now. They come and go, depending on whose father tells my father what he wants to hear. Did you ever see her again? I doubt it, but I can't be sure. As I said, they come and go. No one ever attacked me again. Now, tell me about a pirate battle. I'm not sure it can compare. That's the point. The trees cleared, and we drove through a collection of run-down houses and shops circled around a fountain and courtyard. Our carriages rattled through the empty streets. The peasants must still be asleep. Most of the houses had no windows. How could anyone stand to live in such a small, dark place? I was at sea, Sir Gilbert said when we entered the forest again. Were you sailing with your skeleton crew again? We both laughed. Yes, I had my skeleton crew for that voyage. You don't find many sailors willing to chase pirates. We hadn't been sailing together long, and were traveling light. Just enough to get a feel for the ship. No cannons, no cargo. The boy in the crow's nest didn't notice the pirate ship until we were sailing side by side. I gave my first mate the wheel and rushed to the side of the deck just as the pirate captain gave the order to board. Pirates swung across on ropes and pulled out their swords. I stabbed the pirate nearest me and tossed him overboard. This really isn't appropriate breakfast conversation, Princess. I swallowed a bite of pastry. I told you my story. What happens next? I knew the pirates would keep attacking us as long as their captain ordered, so I grabbed a nearby rope and swung over to the pirate ship. The coward had stayed behind while his men attacked. He pulled out his sword, and we fought across the empty ship, while my men fought his. I managed to fling his sword into the sea. I grabbed his arm, twisted it behind his back, and held my sword to his throat. We left the forest and traveled across gently sloping, striped hills. The different colors are different crops, Sir Gilbert said. Farmers plant crops like that in the colonies. Did he call off his men? I asked, leaning toward him. Yes, they returned to the pirate ship. I couldn't let them go, but my men were in no shape to bring prisoners back. So I took one of their own cannons, pointed it downward, and shot a hole through the pirate ship. As it sunk, I swung back across and ordered my crew to sail for home. And the ship sank? What about the pirates? As I said, it is hardly a proper breakfast conversation. The carriages stopped on top of one of the striped hills. Sir Gilbert jumped out and offered me his hand. What now, defeater of pirates? I asked. We walked into the forest side by side. Music floated down from the trees. I glanced up. Members of our orchestra sat in the branches. In the shifting light of the forest, a bandit could easily have been among them. His name is the Shadow, I said. Sir Gilbert's arm stiffened. Who? The bandit. He stole a shipment of gems from the museum a few days ago. I had to wear lace instead. I glanced back, hoping I looked casual. A line of couples, led by my parents, followed us. Does he steal from you often? I tightened my grip on his arm, just a little. Often enough. There are even songs about him. I sang softly, so only he could hear. The shadow comes when the sun goes down. The shadow comes to steal your silk, your crown, your jewels, your gown. The shadow comes to steal. I took his smile as encouragement and sang the second verse. The shadow slips through the moonless night. The shadow climbs the tears. The guards are keen, he goes unseen. The shadow climbs the tears. Sir Gilbert stared at me as if in a trance. I looked away, unsure what to say. Finally, he shook his head, and his expression cleared. It sounds as if he has caused quite a bit of trouble for you. Once he stole an entire shipment of silks that had just been unloaded in the harbor. No one knows how. There were crates and crates of them. Lady Alma had to take apart dresses from the museum to make a new one for me to wear when I met a duke from Castana. I've never been so embarrassed in my life. Everyone whispered about it. She started keeping extra supplies in her studio after that, and she's been gathering even more since the gem theft. I mistook the glint of a flute for a dagger and jumped. Sir Gilbert pulled me closer until he saw the musician and relaxed. I've never told anyone about that, I said. I'm sure I'm supposed to be impressing you with the wealth of the mainland. I won't tell anyone, and I'm sure you looked lovely. Lady Alma changed the color of the fabric. It didn't look recycled. We followed a path that was hardly a path at all. It zigzagged through the trees, littered with rocks and roots. The gardener should clear the path more often, I said, tripping on a root. Sir Gilbert laughed for some reason. We both jumped as a violist sitting in a tree began to play. I am sorry. I thought it would be fun to have the musicians hide in the woods and serenade us. Who said I'm not having fun? But I couldn't help singing the third verse of the song in my head. Beware, beware, O princess fair, the shadow's always near, cares not for charm, he means you harm, the shadow's always near. We reached a stream with no bridge across it. Sir Gilbert caught my hand as I jumped and helped me over. We walked along the bank. This is a charming surprise, Sir Gilbert. I've never been to the woods. I rarely leave the castle. Don't be disappointed, but this isn't the surprise. We're almost there. The stream disappeared into a hole in a hill. We walked up, and I gasped when I saw the other side. A rolling valley covered in snow stretched before me. Horses hitched to sleighs stood to the side. How is this possible? I asked, looking back to the forest. It was as green as ever. I stepped into the valley and felt the snow crunch beneath my shoe. Welcome to the fairy snow. Sir Gilbert helped me into a sleigh, and we sat for a moment, watching everyone react to the valley. What magic have you used? I asked. Only the magic of Salaria. He snapped the reins, and our sleigh glided across the winter valley behind the white horse. Sir Gilbert handled the horse masterfully, avoiding the other sleighs and taking us around the valley. The sparkling snow was almost blinding. Sir Gilbert handed me the reins. Oh, I couldn't! No one is watching. I glanced around. Everyone was staring at the snow. I took the reins and almost ran into my parents as they drove over to give me a parasol. Sir Gilbert grabbed the reins before they noticed I was driving, but he handed them back to me when they left. I snapped them, and the horse bolted forward. I struggled to regain control. Stay calm and know where you're going, Sir Gilbert said. I managed to make a loop around the valley before handing him the reins. Then I opened the parasol and waited for my heartbeat to slow. Beautifully done. I would expect no less from the heir to Salaria's throne. I wasn't supposed to be, you know. Everyone thought my parents would have a son. Well, thank goodness they didn't. Long before I was ready to go, a trumpet sounded. Everyone guided their sleighs back to the top of the hill. You have an opera to perform tonight, Sir Gilbert said before I could protest. A silver fountain sat in the stream now, shooting crystal drops of water into the air. Sir Gilbert got a cup from a servant and filled it for me. A lovely touch, I said. And necessary. This stream flows straight from the salt mines, so it is undrinkable. How so? Sir Gilbert filled his cup from the stream and handed it to me. I took a sip and gagged at the salt. Our greatest treasure, I said, after a few gulps of the filtered water to get the taste out of my mouth. Yes, 'tis Salaria's greatest treasure, Sir Gilbert said. He kept his eyes on me as he took a drink.